We're going to start the second literature circle of the chapters 4 to 7 of the Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. Why do you think the boys at Pecola's school were shaming her because of her skin color if they were black also? Do you think the meanness to Pecola is an expression of their own self-hatred?
I think they were treating Pekla bad because of her father, because everyone in town hated her father. So I think this had a lot to do, and they were also saying her father was sleeping naked, and I think this is a reflection of self hate from the boys because they don't like being black, and when they see Pecola in harder situation, they treat her very very bad.
I think that I agree with my partners because I think that they see in Pecola what they are. So they don't like to face the truth, and I think that also because of how they were raised, like thinking that the good thing is white, and that's why they hate both being black and the situation that means being a black person.
Do you think there was an union and empathy inside the black people culture, or do you think they were separated and hated each other?
Okay, this on these chapters, there's a reflection of how there was a lot of hate between them, and they weren't friends. For example, when Pecola was bullied by these guys, or when the mother said she didn't love her family, I think there was a lot of hate in the black community, and there was no empathy between them, and they didn't help each other like they should have.
I think that they were so repressive and so dismissive for like by white people that they wanted to treat themselves as white people treated them. I think that this culture had been going for a long time, so people didn't actually know how to act with kindness and empathy because they have never seen someone acting that way.
Do you think that Junior killed his mother cat as a consequence of his feelings?
I do think so because he hated the cat so much because the mother loved the cat more than the family itself. So I think he was feeling a lot of hate, and he didn't feel attention from his mother especially. And I think it's also a lot of repression because his father was light skinned and he felt different than the other kids. So I think he killed the cat because he was craving for attention from his parents.
I think that yes, he did kill him to get attention from his mother. But I think that the most astonished thing for me was the attitude that every mother had on the story because Piccola's mother loved more the white people than her family, her own family, and Junior's mother loved more the cat than her own family. And I think that's a reflection of how the writers saw the situation in black people, how the disattention from parents was affecting the rising of the children.
What do you think about the people calling Frida as a ruined person when Henry touched her?
I think there was a lot of sexual tension in that community because we know the plot of the story of Pecla being raped by her father, and then we have this situation from Frieda that a man touched her breasts. So I think this means that in that community there was a lot of sexual violence, and they said she was a ruined person because, as we know, Pecola, there were a lot of prostitutes in the town. So they thought that since they had already touched her, she would like it and maybe go in a bad direction and maybe be a prostitute or experience sexual violence.
I think that this is a very hypocrite situation because yes, she was touched by a man, but anyone cared about what Henry did. They just judge Freda because of the things someone else had done to her, and I think that it was like very hypocrite from them to act that way because as my partner was saying, the prostitution was a common practice there in that society. But well, prostitution exists because there's people who pays for the service. So I don't think that they should dismiss even prostitution because that's a way they survive. Even kids, their mothers survive and give food to them by prostitution.
Do you think the girls live in a safe environment?
Well, I would definitely say no because, as we said before, there was a lot of prostitution and violence in the town. And I think this affected the girls especially because they weren't treated equally, not only because they were girls or women, but because they were black. So as we know, a lot of mothers were maids or they had jobs where they experienced violence and they weren't paid fairly. So I think it wasn't a safe environment for girls, especially to grow up in such a violent and racial hated environment.
I'm thoroughly agree with my partner because the girls were just treated as merchandise and they were treated like really bad and they weren't protected by either by their parents or the school or society. They were just alone.
Why do you think Pecola's mother cared more about the family she was working with than with her own family?
Well, as we said before, there was a lot of racial hate. So I think that since she was working with a white family, she knew they were superior to her, and she loved them more because they had more than she did, and they had money, and they treated her well. And when she arrived home, she knew that her house wasn't pretty enough, and her family there was a lot of violence. And I think this has a lot to do because she knew that black people were inferior, so she loved white people even more, even if she wasn't white.
I totally agree with my partner because I think she just thought that white people was better, not only because of the color, but because of the opportunities they had. And I think that it was so sad for her to go back to her home and see the reality she was living in, like changing from a beautiful white house that with long and expensive doors, and then going back to her house and see the reality where her kids are just not well treated, not in a good school, and she was just not taking care of that because of the fairness that it gave to her. It gave it to her.
Well, this was the literature circle for the fourth until the seventh chapter of the Bluest, and we are Marla, Estefanía, and Alejandra.